Good morning and welcome to another live. If you like this channel and you like what I do, I really do need your support. And you can do that by just going to my YouTube channel, Blind Advocate, and just hit that subscribe button. That's all you need to do. It takes about 60 seconds, if that. So hit that subscribe button and go to options and select all. That way, when I release stuff, you'll be notified straight away. Now, as we know, the Albanese government's making major changes to the NDIS. What the changes amount to is that they're going to slash the funding. So he was citing that the his government got the people coming onto the NDIS down from 22% down to about 10%. And he's going to take it even further down to 6%. And how's he going to do that? Well, he's going to slash everyone's funding. Basically, that's what it is. But he hasn't tackled the real problem. And the real problem for the cost blowout to the NDIS is fraud. Now, this is done with organised crime. It's done by support workers, independent support workers, and some for-profit service providers are doing the same thing. They charge their clients a minimum 2 hours, and they're not allowed to do that. They're supposed to just charge the time that they work, but they don't. They charge a minimum 2 hours when they're there for less than an hour. That, in my opinion, is where the huge part of the fraud comes from. Now, it's happened to me in the past. I've actually got rid of those people because of what they were doing. I just don't agree with it. Now, what that government's doing, Albanese doing, and what the senior management of the NDIA are doing, especially the deputy CEO, John Dardo, D-A-R-D-O, John Dardo, who used to work for the tax office, and who got him over to the NDIA? Our old mate, Bill Jordon. So John Dardo, when he was the ATO, he was known as a hatchet. He would come in and go for the financial throat of people. So that's why he was moved and asked to leave the ATO to go to the NDIA from the research that I've done. So that's straight up. That's how I've researched it. Now, John Dardo was going around Parliament House telling everybody that NDIS participants are rotting the system, that they're using their funding to buy alcohol, have free holidays, pay their mortgage, pay their rates, the cost of living. And when he was saying this to the Senate system estimates in 2024, the Green Senator Jordon, Steele-John, nailed him so completely and profoundly. He was stuttering and stumbling, and he couldn't form a sentence at one stage because he just didn't have a response to Senator Jordon Steele-John's questions. And the way I see it, and this is my opinion, is that what the government and the senior management of the NDIA are doing is blaming NDIS participants for the fraud that's going on. So instead of tackling the fraud, which in my opinion, from the stuff I've looked at, is way above what the government's reporting. And why is that? Because they don't want to look bad. They don't want to show themselves in the bad light. So it's easier for them to blame the participants than it is to attack those people who are defrauding their clients, the NDIA, and most of all, most importantly, the taxpayers. So why blame the victim of the fraud? Why are they doing that? Now, I've been thinking about this, for the past couple of weeks. And I've come up with a few options that, which I believe, may be relevant, maybe not. A, they're just trying to cover up their own incompetence at running the NDIA, the NDIS, the senior management. Because let's look at the CEO. They're on over $800,000 a year. Rebecca Fortningham, when she was CEO, was on over $800,000 a year. Now, if the new CEO is on that sort of money, what's the deputy CEO worth? 700,000 a year? Now, I've spoken to a person who worked in senior management and governance and risk management, who left in disgust at the way it was run. And he was telling me that they advertised a position in the senior management of the NDIA. They got this bloke in, went through his resume, interviewed him, gave him the job. $500,000 a year contract. Well, apparently he fudged his resume quite a bit because he couldn't do the job. But because he had a contract, they couldn't just sack him. So they moved him to one side and actually employed a woman to come in and do that job on the same money. So they're paying $1 million for a $500,000 job. That's the scale of the incompetence of the senior management of the NDIA. And option B is that the government's looking for a scapegoat, and they pinned it on us, the participants of the NDIA. They don't want to look bad, so they just blame us, because it's much easier to blame the victim than it is to take the responsibility of saying, yes, we made a mistake. Yes, we're going to fix it up. No. That's too hard for the Albanese government. We'll just blame the victims, the people with disabilities, the NDIS participants. Now, a lot of a lot of people with disabilities struggle just to get their head off their pillow every day. They really do. I struggle sometimes to get up and get through the day. And I'm much better off than some people with disabilities, because I'm sort of more mobile than others. So, but I still struggle. But, the incompetence that the government's shown from 2007 right up to, or 2013 right up to now. Now, I'm going to show you a clip shortly. Now, I want you to listen very carefully to Senator Jordon Steele-John from the Greens. Listen to his question. Listen to the response from the Deputy CEO, John Dardo. And when Senator Jordon Steele-John asked him to clarify it, Dardo can't string a sentence together. He can't do it. He's just unable to do it. So I'll just get you to play that now, Chris. Just listen to Jordon Steele-John, listen to his questions, and listen to the response. And if you are cited, watch his body posture. John Dardo. Let's play that thing, Chris.
So you referenced in your answer to one of my colleagues that participants had been, there were cases that you identified where participants had used their funds to purchase alcohol, was one of the examples that you gave. What percentage of claims processed in the last financial year by the agency have been identified as claims by a participant for alcohol?
Yeah, it's a very problematic question to answer, Senator. And I'll give you a couple of reasons. The first reason is that the systems are so immature that some of the channels that participants could claim through require no ABN, no description, no word, nothing. It's just they could put in a dollar amount and they get paid. And so until we actually go and do integrity work, it's impossible to find out what they're actually claiming for. So I'll give you an example. A participant on a $480,000 a year plan divides that by 12, claims $40,000 a year. puts that in as a claim every month, $40,000 every month. When we do the integrity work, we find out that he actually only has costs of $20,000 a year, but because his plan is $480,000, he claims the whole amount. The other $20,000 goes to his mortgage or his bank account or his cost of living. I can't break that down into how much he spends on alcohol or on a pet or on something else because there is no way to unpack that. So what I would say is what we can tell you with certainty is that the minimum error rate is 5%, the minimum error rate, and that those errors don't include identity fraud, fraudulent invoices, false statements, collusion, all the other stuff. That is the minimum error rate.
I understand, Mr. Dardo, but what logically follows from your detailed answer, and thank you for that, is how many individual cases of participants using their funds to purchase alcohol have you actually identified in the last financial year?
We have, there would be thousands of cases where participants are claiming things that are not consistent with the plan.
I understand that, Mr. Dardo, but you made specific
Senator,
reference to alcohol, so I do need you to go to that part of
Endeavouring to answer the question, Mr. Dardo.
It would be in the hundreds, Senator. The difficulty is that it is well beyond that, that the systems are not mature enough to actually know. And in most cases, our integrity work stops at the point where we establish that it wasn't on a specific NDIS related claim.
But Mr. Dardo, with the greatest of respect, when you put into the public domain an assertion such as you have made, it has really serious ramifications for the discrimination experienced by disabled people in Australia. So I'm going to have to ask you to substantiate your claim with something more specific than a couple of hundred. So you've put the claim in the public sphere. What number are we talking about?
And I was also very clear that it was more than alcohol. It was
I'll get to more than alcohol in a moment. But I'm speaking specifically about the alcohol claim.
I'll have to take it on notice and come. But I don't keep a category by category description.
So you don't keep a category by category description?
I don't, but I will take it on notice, and I'm sure we can do so.
So what category do you keep?
We keep categories at a broader level of whether the claim was consistent with the plan, or whether it was a duplicate claim, or whether it was a claim that was withdrawn. So there are other categories we use, but we certainly have lots of exemplar detail for examples of things that are ticking over our risk typologies, the things that we're looking for to try and stop.
Yes, but Mr. Dardo, in a scheme of 660,000 people, you will find individual examples of many different types of behaviour. You have specifically referenced alcohol, and yet when asked to provide the specific numbers, you are unable to do so. That is deeply concerning to me. What data are you drawing on to make these claims?
We're drawing on lots of data. We're drawing on data that's around payment integrity work. So this is data that is randomized sample data. We are drawing from exemplar case studies. So these are case studies where the specific provider or the specific network of providers have come into focus, and their operating models have come into focus. We're drawing on intelligence, which is where we've been able to access the business models that providers use to incentivize and to attract participants, and we're acting on complaints. So,
are you able to provide any more detail on the additional claim you made of participants using their funds to pay for rents and rates?
We have, again, we have you know, in certainly just in the last fortnight, multiple cases of dozens of participants where we're surfacing claiming for things that have been encouraged by providers that are not consistent with the plan. So the providers are encouraging the claiming or facilitating the claiming of things that are not consistent with the plan. One of those things, one of those big typologies that we're surfacing is...
So you just heard John Dardo, okay, the Deputy CEO of the NDIA. He's gone from thousands to hundreds to dozens and to multiple. And what's multiple? 2, 3? 2, 300? 2, 3,000? He just can't pinpoint it because he's making it up. I believe he's making it up. He's just trying to make things up to protect his own high-paying job, in my opinion. That's all he's doing. And the last bit, you know, when he's talking about paying for pets, is he talking about pets or is he talking about service animals? Because they're two different things. Two different things. So we've gone from thousands to hundreds to dozens to multiple. He can't pinpoint it because he doesn't know. He's making most of this crap up. It's just beyond belief that he's allowed to get away with it. But then again, you know, he's a Labor Party ring-in from the ATO who has no experience in working with people with disabilities or the disability sector at all. He's a number cruncher. That's all he is, nothing more. No relevance to the disability community. Their families, their friends, their carers, support workers, service providers, none. And at the last bit, just before we stopped, he was saying service providers were pressuring their participants, their clients, to charge these things to their funding. The service providers are pressuring their clients to put these things through their funding. So it wasn't the participants' idea, it was the service providers' ideas to put these through. Now, a lot of service providers, especially the non-profit ones, do a fantastic job. They do a really good job in a really hard situation. There are other service providers that do, they're okay, and other service providers shouldn't be allowed to work with anyone with a disability, work for the NDIA, work in aged care or working with children, in my opinion. So why are you attacking people with disabilities? Why not are you attacking service providers who are doing the wrong thing? Independent support workers are doing the wrong thing. Organised crime. Now, according to Deputy CEO John Dardo, they can't prosecute all the cases of fraud because A, they would never get their money back, and B, it would overwhelm the Australian court system. It will collapse. I don't care. I'm not going to be held responsible for what a criminal does. It's ridiculous. You're blaming the victims instead of blaming the perpetrators of the crime. He shouldn't have that job, in my opinion. He should be fired immediately. Go back to your spreadsheets and your computer number crunching, because that's all you're good for, data. You're useless. You have no understanding what it's like to have a disability. You had no experience in working in the disability sector. You're just a hatchet man for the Labor Party. You're blaming the victims of the fraud, not the people who are committing the fraud. In my opinion, you're just scum, data. You need to go. Hang your head in shame and stuff Bill Shorten for getting you into that job in the first place. In my opinion, you're a complete and utter wanker. You're an idiot. You shouldn't have that job. Blaming people with disabilities. I'll just keep playing that, please, Chris. Sorry. Sorry, everyone's just got a minor technical fault. We'll get to you in a second.
Is when providers are actively convincing participants that they can claim for holidays, for example. But
What, sorry?
holidays.
So you have among dozens of examples of providers pressuring participants. One of the examples is in relation to a holiday.
It's not one, it's dozens in relation to holidays.
Senator Steele-John.
Well, what? Yeah, I do understand, Chair, but you are, if the sign reads correctly, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the National Disability Insurance Agency, and you have just spoken in the most profoundly vague terms about very serious claims. This is an estimate session, not a field opinion moment. How is it that you are unable to give us specific data?
I believe
Senator,
Mr. Dado took the question on notice and said he will come back to you with more specific data, Senator Steele-John.
You've already made the
I
claim.
don't think that's a reasonable description of what he said.
You've made a claim. which
Mr. Dado,
elicits-
I'll allow you an opportunity to respond to that question, and then we do need to rotate the call. Mr. Dado.
Senator, I think I've been really transparent in saying the system's immature. So we rely on a range of indicators and data points and exemplar work and casework to actually bring a picture together. And I have previously in this room offered a private briefing where I can share in much more detail what we know and how we know it, which I can't put in the public domain, but I have previously offered that and I'm offering it again. If you want to take up that offer, I'm happy for you to then.
No, Mr. Dunham, I would not like to take up an offer of a behind-the-scenes briefing where you give me certain examples that I then can't use in the public domain when the basis of this extraordinary claim around fraud is driven by data that you cannot identify to an estimate session you have had advanced notice of. Without this specific data, we as a committee are left to assume that you are making it up, that you are inventing because it is a service to the narrative of the government to imply that disabled people are using our NDIS funds for holidays, drinks and alcohol, and then your minister gets to go around and brief members of parliament and use those examples as scare tactics to get them to support his cooked legislation.
Senator Steele-John, Senator Steele-John, do not talk over me, please.
Oh, what a bitch.
This is an opportunity for questions to be asked and answers to be given. It is not an opportunity for a debate.
Okay.
So you referenced in your answer to one of my colleagues that
Mr. Steele-John,
participants had been there were.
So you just heard the end there. I'm being transparent by the Deputy CEO, John Dado. I'm being transparent. But he can't give exact cases, the exact number, because he doesn't know. He's looking at a broad spectrum of samples of hundreds of thousands of people on the NDIA. He's gone from thousands to hundreds to dozens to multiple and back up to hundreds and thousands. And in my opinion, this bloke needs to go pack his bags and piss off back to the ATO and read his numbers, because he's pathetic at this job he has now as the Deputy CEO of the NDIA. Absolutely ludicrous. And Senator Jordon, Steele-John, what a magnificent job shining a spotlight on the incompetence of the senior management of the NDIA and the government. He did a fantastic job. He just nailed him, left, right and centre. Now, at the very end, you heard the chair of the Senate's committee rip on Jordon, Steele-John for shining the spotlight. So we did a bit of a look at the chair of this Senate inquiry back in 2024. And she's from South Australia, and she's a Labor Party senator, another Labor Party stooge, defending the Labor Party's incompetence, defending the incompetence of the NDIA senior management. Now, Senator Jordon Steele-John from the Greens, he did an excellent job in those questions and trying to pin him on the exact numbers, which he couldn't give. He done such a good job that the chair, I think her name was it Marielle Smith, I think her name was, hammered Jordon Steele-John for asking the questions and wanting honest, transparent answers. Don't talk over the me, Jordon Steele-John. Well, you did the exact same thing to the senator just then. You're just a Labor Party stooge. You're just a grunt. You know, you're 1/3 of the Labor Party, 3 stooges. You know, Jordon Steele-John, he bit his tongue because, and I think he did an excellent job biting his tongue when that snot-nosed bloody Labor senator from South Australia spoke to him the way she did. Had it been me, I would have told her to F off. So Senator Jordon Steele-John, thank you for doing your job and doing it well. And shame on the Australian Labor Party and shame on the senior management of the NDIA blaming the NDIS participants, people with disabilities. Because you heard John Dardo say, our service providers are forcing their clients to put these things into their funding. So they're being pressured into submitting those invoices to the NDIA to their funding. Not that they wanted to, that they were forced to. So it's easier for them to blame the victim of the fraud than it is to hold those people accountable. Well done, Senator Jordon Steele-John. Piss poor effort by the Australian Labor Party and the senior management of the NDIA. Very, very bad. You're incompetent. You're biased, in my opinion. Terrible, terrible bloody behaviour by the Labor Party and the senior management of the NDIA. Now, when we were looking through these Senate's inquiry, we did hear one person from the senior management of the NDIA. I'm not sure it was Rebecca Fortingham or John Dart. I can't remember which one it was, but they said that they don't cross-reference with other agencies like the tax office and that because of privacy reasons. But yeah, later on, another one says, "Oh, we cross-reference with 16 different agencies." So what is you don't cross-reference or you do cross-reference? Labor Party keeps getting caught out with lying, deliberate lies, not honest mistakes, deliberate lies. And I'm not going to be held responsible, nor do I think any participant should be held responsible from service providers pressuring their clients and submitting claims that they shouldn't be doing. Terrible, terrible job. So the next clip we're going to look at is Senator Jordon Steele-John being interviewed on the ABC. And again, he's so articulate and he hits the nail on the head every time. I think he's done a fantastic job. And I think he does a fantastic job because Jordon Steele-John himself has a disability. So he understands what it's like. He's got lived experience, and so does his family. But we'll just play that next clip, please, Chris. Just listen to the questions and Jordon's responses.
Let's bring in Greens Senator and Disability Spokesperson Jordon Steele-John, who joins me now from Perth. Hi there, Jordon. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Just firstly, what do you make of the changes announced today?
Thank you very much for your time today. My reaction is one of shock and of deep sadness. The disability community knew that this announcement would be bad, but this is quite frankly terrifying for us and our families.
Can you take me through the reasons why? You obviously, you know, as you say, people were expecting changes to be announced, but what is it about the changes that have been announced this afternoon that are so shocking and saddening for you?
Well, first of all, the government's announced cuts to social and community participation. What that actually is supports that enable disabled people to spend some time outside in the community, sometimes an hour a week. And now those supports are on the chopping block because of this announcement. The government has said that they intend to remove 160,000 participants from the National Disability Insurance Scheme. They obviously know the criteria that they will use to remove that number of people, and yet they haven't made that public today. They've kept the criteria hidden from the very people it will affect. What this means is that thousands of families will live for weeks, months, if not years, in the anguish and uncertainty if they are next to lose their supports. This is not what the Australian community expect from a Labor government.
You touched on it there, these changes to social and community participation, which was singled out by the Minister as a target for some of these spending cuts. The Minister said in his speech that it was because of concerns about the actual quality of the services being provided. But just take us through what sort of material impact those changes will have on people who are accessing the social and community participation services.
Well, what it means for people, if we step outside of the political spin of this moment, is fewer hours to be able to access their community, to meet up with their friends or to connect with their family. It means loneliness, it means isolation, it means segregation. It means a return for disabled people to the shut-in institutions that we thought we had left behind long ago.
There's sort of long been talk about concerns around blowouts within the NDIS. Do you acknowledge that, it had gotten too broad and that it was in need of major changes in order to be sustainable?
Well, let's tackle this question of sustainability because there's been a lot of talk about it. When the NDIS was set up, we did not know how many disabled people there were. All government programs are based on projections. And 10 years later, we now know there are more disabled people than we expected, requiring more supports and services. And that is why, as I sit here and we look at the NDIS, it's actually a net economic gain, because for every $1 that's put into the scheme, you have $2.25 that is taken, that is put back into the economy in the form of people spending money with Australian businesses, support workers that have jobs, disabled people that have jobs and pay taxes. At the end of the day, budgets are about choices. And with this announcement, Labor is choosing to cut supports for disabled people and our families rather than make the gas companies pay their fair share of tax, or the billionaires and the big corporations chip in a bit more. And that is not a decision that aligns with Australian values.
What sort of reforms would you have preferred to see be announced today?
Well, I think it would have been a really good idea to sit down with the disability community and work with us on how we actually tackle the barriers to access to the NDIS and the broader supports that are needed. If we just take this one issue of fraud, which has been spoken about a lot in the last couple of weeks, often as quite a distraction from what the government is actually doing here, which is making savage cuts. But on the question of fraud, Let's actually fund the Quality and Safeguards Commission properly so that it can investigate that fraud, those criminal activities, and get convictions. Because at the moment, in the entire life of the commission, there's been 23 convictions from their investigations. That's nowhere near good enough.
Green Senator and Disability Spokesperson Jordon Steele-John joining me from Perth there. Thanks very much for your insights this afternoon. Appreciate your time.
Okay, so you heard the questions and Senator Steele-John's responses. Now, I agree with nearly all of it. There's something I disagree with. You don't have to have a job just to pay taxes. If you go and buy something at a shop, you pay taxes. You get someone in to do something to your house or in the yard, you pay GST. You pay taxes through, when you buy stuff all the time. So you just don't have to pay taxes through your income. You pay taxes everywhere. Everywhere you turn around, you pay a tax or an excise or a stamp duty. So everyone pays taxes. Now, you heard him talk about 23 convictions of fraud to the NDIA. That's about 2 a year. And we all know there's way more fraud that's going on than that. Way, thousands more. And like I said a few minutes ago, that senior management of the NDIA said that we can't take everyone to court that commits fraud because A, we won't get our money back, and B, it overwhelmed Australia's court system and it would collapse. Well, that's a good attitude to have. Yeah, just blame the victim for the crime, not the perpetrator of the crime. That's a good attitude. People with disabilities have got to harden up, but just kick them in the guts while they're down. They're just people with disabilities that, they don't matter. We'll just blame them for everything. We won't hold ourselves responsible for the incompetence of the mismanagement, gross incompetence. If you really look at what the government's doing, it's abuse and neglect because they're blaming the victims of the fraud, not the perpetrators. 2 a year over the last 13 years. Not a great outcome for the senior management of the NDIA and the governments. It's all right. They can commit fraud. It's only the taxpayers paying for it. We still get our Albanese's on $622,000 a year plus all his allowances. Now, I tried to look into how much he gets in allowances, and I couldn't get that information because of privacy reasons. So what I did, I went through all the allowances that senators and MPs get, and I applied that to Albanese. So his base income was $622,000 a year. It goes up around about $1.5 million a year. The US president earns $400,000 a year, but with his allowances, it goes up to $500,000 a year. The UK Prime Minister is £186,000 a year, plus allowances. So it takes it like $400,000 Australian dollars. The Australian Prime Minister earns more than the UK Prime Minister and the US President combined. The UK has twice our population. They have about 70 million people in the UK. And there's 380 million people in the US. But no, we've got 28 million and Albanese deserves twice what they get. That's fair. That's fair. He gets his 1.5 million a year. But the person on disability pension who gets the NDIS for supports, stuff them. We'll just blame them because it's a lot easier, a lot quicker. We'll just add to the scaremongering put around by John Dardo and his other CEO, senior management people at the NDIA. Blame the people with disabilities. It's easier, it's quicker, it's more effective. Would you blame the victim of a rape for being raped? No, you wouldn't. you blame the perpetrator. Would you blame a child who's been abused and neglected? Or would you blame the person who's done the abusing and the neglecting? Yeah, not the Australian government and senior management of the NDIA. No, it's easier for them to blame the participants of the NDIA. Hold them responsible for what the perpetrators of the crime do. Make them pay for it. Oh, well done, Albanese. Australian ALP. Yeah, should change it from Australian Labor Party, the ALP, to the Australian Lying Party, in my opinion. You're a grub, Albanese. You truly are a grub, in my opinion. You're nothing. You're worthless. You're a disgusting human being, in my opinion. And my opinion is also, so is John Dardo and Rebecca Fortningham. No faith in their abilities whatsoever. No trust. But how long are we going to sit around and take it? Blame the victims, blame people with disabilities. It's their fault they have a disability. They asked for it. Just blame them. Their life's hard enough that they got nothing, that they're worth nothing. So we'll just blame them. It's a lot easier, a lot quicker, a lot cheaper than holding ourselves responsible. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It just shows you what the mentality of the senior management of the NDIA and the Australian Labor Party is. It's disgusting. It's vile. It's repugnant. Now, there's a couple of other clips I wanted to show, but I'm not going to do it just yet. There's one with Jordon Steele-John again, responding to something that Pauline Hanson said. I'm just, before I show that, I want to find out what she actually said, because she's making these statements, and I think, again, that, Senator Pauline Hanson, she just doesn't know, because she's never been a part of the disability community. And I don't blame her for that. She's never been around a person with a disability or grown up with a person with a disability, and she doesn't know what it's like. And that goes for a lot of Australians. So we've got to help educate those people. But old Jordon, he was quite fired up in response to the Pauline Hanson. I don't know what she said, but I'm trying to find out. When I do, I'll show both clips. But thank you, Senator Jordon Steele-John. You've done an excellent job. You nailed John Dardo for his incompetence, and able to give examples, proper examples. Like I said, he went from thousands to hundreds to dozens to multiple, to back up to hundreds and thousands. It's just he had no response to the senator's questions. It was just, I was just clapping and cheering Jordon Steele-John all the way through that Senate's inquiry when he was asking those questions. All right, I think that's about all for this week. I'll keep doing my research, and I'll keep pushing along, trying to promote the rights of people with disabilities, and to promote the abuse that we suffer through the government and from the senior management of the NDIA, because that's all it is. It's just abuse. It's an abuse of power. They have all the power and all the money, we don't. Oh, sorry. We don't have that power. We don't have that money behind us, so, we don't matter as much. But when you think about it, Jordon Steele-John, 660,000 people on the NDIS. It's a lot of votes too. You can look at it that way, but how do we get these incompetent buffoons out of the management of the NDIA? Well, we can't, because they're all appointed by the government. Even the NDIA board, they're all appointed by the government. So is the IAC, they're all appointed by government. We'll just get people in there that we can control and steer in the right direction that we want them to go. we should be electing our own representatives to the NDIA board and the IASC. That way we'll have a true voice and a little bit of power and a little bit of influence. At least we can be heard through our representatives, not through those people who are appointed. Now, when I first started looking in the NDIA, the coalition was in power, and I looked at the board. One woman was from Allied Health, and another woman had a job in the disability sector, and all the others were from the mining companies, the ex-CEO of Kmart and Wesfarmers, and all these big multinational companies. Now it's all full of, high achieving Paralympians, which is good, but like I said, all high achieving. A lot of people with disabilities aren't high achieving. They struggle to get through every damn day through the discrimination, the bias, the lack of income. So we should have a true representative, and we should be able to elect those people to those positions, not be appointed by the government. Anyway, I think that's about all for this week. I thank everyone for joining. Once again, if you want to contact me, it's blindadvocate007@gmail.com. If you have a topic you want me to discuss or look into, or you just want to reach out and make contact and ask a few questions, I'm quite happy to respond as soon as I can. So thank you for everyone for joining. Thanks, Chris. I'll just end it there. Thanks, everyone.